Good morning. Happy Monday. I have Neuro Coffee in hand and it is perfect. I got my new duds on. I got the official Phoenix t-shirt hoodie on. It's perfect for me. My wife likes to keep the house just a little bit cooler than I do, so it is a perfect thing for me to wear around the house and in the home office. These are going to go out to special people. They know who they are, so please don't ask for them. They're not for sale. I will not sell them. They are gifts. So be looking for that, you special people out there. Now, I got a really good question for this morning, and it has to do with squatting, so everybody's going to get kind of excited about that. It comes from Adam. And Adam says, I love the video on how hip IR is lost. Had a question regarding this and how it relates to the ankle. I know I have a wide ISA and I've been told that when I squat, I definitely have a bias towards ERing super hard. With that said, my issue is that my femurs externally rotate, but my ankles tend to collapse and feet tend to pronate as well as I get towards 90 degrees or below. Tactics such as a tripod foot don't seem to do much for it. I'm assuming that with so much external rotation occurring, my body is trying to find IR at the ankles as a compensation for the lack of IR in the femurs and the hips. Okay. So, Adam, I think I like your thinking, but let me give you an alternative explanation for this, because I think that the way you described it hints at something that is really, really common and a very, very common misunderstanding as to what's actually happening during the squat. So, let's talk about what would normally occur as we descend into the squat. So we talk about the way that the hip is oriented and the pelvis is oriented as we move through space. And so this early phase of hip flexion, so as you're descending in the squat, this early phase would be external rotation. We pass through internal rotation where we get a reorientation of the acetabulum, and then we finish into this deep position. And chances are, Adam, I'm not picking on you, brother, but chances are if you're a wide ISA and you're squatting the way you say, you're not hitting end range flexion, so we're not going to even worry about that part. But what I do want to talk about is what's potentially going on with the orientation of the pelvis and then what you're actually seeing at the hip. What you're perceiving as external rotation is actually internal rotation. So let's talk about that for a second. So if you're a wide ISA, you're going to be biased towards an internal rotation of that ilium and a nutation of the sacrum, which would put you in a position that looks something like that with the nutation. I'm exaggerating for effect, of course. But chances are, again, based on the way that you're describing it, you're going to be anteriorly oriented and you're going to be compressed in this posterior aspect. So as you try to descend, you're not even starting in this normal ER position. You're probably not able to capture that. So you're going to hit IR pretty hard and pretty fast. So as you descend, what you're going to try to do is you're going to see this hip going out. And a lot of people perceive that as being external rotation. However, if the knee is going out and you're still descending, I want you to see this really, really closely. If the knee goes out and you descend, that actually turns you into internal rotation. So as the knee goes out, you're actually capturing the internal rotation at the hip, but you can't capture it in an arc that is reasonably close to what we would perceive as traditional flexion. You've got to deviate outward and try to capture it there. So what that's going to do, it's going to drive your knee outward, but your foot is grounded and you still need a propulsive foot to push off of when you're squatting. And so what's going to happen is the tibia is going to be forward on the ankle, so that's going to move you towards a late propulsive strategy in the foot. But if you use relative motion at the subtalar joint in that position, you're going to collapse towards the floor and you're probably not going to be able to get up out of your squat. And so what you're doing is you're locking up this position in this late propulsive strategy, and it's going to drive you that way towards that visual representation of pronation, which is actually this late propulsive foot strategy. So I think that's what you're seeing more than anything else. So from a strategy wise then, what we probably want to do is let's move you to something that gives you a little bit more of that ER strategy at the beginning of the squat. So if I elevate your heel, I move this tibia backwards relative to the foot, and that puts us in an earlier phase of propulsion. So this is where you can actually capture some of your external rotation in that early phase of the descent of the squat, and then as you move towards your internal rotation, chances are the squat's going to get a little bit prettier that way. Because you're not able to access this early phase of external rotation in your descent because you've given it up with your anterior orientation. Now, in addition to that, what you're going to want to start to do is you're going to work on your split stance activities with your front foot, with the front heel elevated as well, because now it's going to keep you in that early phase of that propulsive strategy. Allow the knee to track over the foot as you descend into your split squats, but with the heel elevated, again, you're going to start to capture that early phase of your propulsive strategy at your ankle and foot. That's going to allow you to access the external rotation at the hip, and you're going to start to move through this full excursion of the hip. Throw in some heels elevated Camperini deadlifts, and now you're going to be able to capture some of the internal rotation with that early propulsive foot as well, and eventually dropping that heel back to the ground in your single leg hingy type of activities. So we have this full ER, full IR kind of a strategy as you move through your squat. So Adam, I hope that gives you a couple of clues. I hope it gives you a little bit more understanding of probably what you're doing in your squat. Again, I think this is a really big point of confusion because people see the knees go apart. They go, oh, you're excellently rotating. When the reality is if your knees are going out and you're descending, you're moving into internal rotation. So thanks, Adam, for the question. Everybody have a great Monday, and I'll see you later.